I made this video because I'm extremely passionate about the topic of mental health. As a person myself who has experienced mental illnesses in chronic depression and anxiety, panic attacks, and having an eating disorder, this is something that I hold dear to me. And when last night's episode of NBC Nightly News premiered, I was extremely disappointed in how it was portraying mental health. In this video, the views are expressed entirely by me. I'm not a licensed psychiatrist or therapist in any way, so I'm not going to tell you any specific thing to do. These are things based off my own experiences and how I disagree with NBC News.
It is the first of the month again. Bills are due and pressure growing on so many out of work. Tonight, Kate Snow takes a look at the heavy toll.
Going into this whole pandemic, I was already kind of, broken.
That is kind of an alarming thing. That caught my attention right away. When somebody thinks that they're broken, that's something that's very deep psychologically in their brain, a belief, something about self-worth, talking about self-dignity, valuing themselves. That's the kind of things that I was like, whoa, okay, let's hear what she has to say.
After a divorce, Suzanne Stiglitz went on medication for depression. She found 2 part-time jobs, but coronavirus eliminated both.
I am very proud of you.
She's job hunting now, but her 11 and 13-year-olds need her.
I've looked at job applications where I'm getting stuck going, well, when can I work? I mean, every other weekend and Wednesdays and Tuesday nights. Because you don't have childcare. Yeah.
I commend this woman so much for really wanting to take care of her 2 children. That is pretty astounding. And to have your jobs taken away, I can definitely say that I can totally see how this would be a really overwhelming situation.
Some days she leaves her 1-bedroom apartment to go to her car to cry in private.
You don't want your kids to be experiencing that and thinking all those things. Like, is it really happening? You have to hide and lie and pretend.
What? Are you kidding me? When you go alone in your car and cry, that's fine. You can do however you want. You can cope with it however you want. But when you have the mentality of saying that you cannot show your emotions, you have to pretend and you have to lie about what's really going on, that is just totally going to fester all those feelings and make it even more worse. You're going to be bottling them up and you're going to be thinking you have to take this whole thing on by yourself because that's just going to eat at you even more.
Long odds of finding a new job only add to the mental toll, says psychiatrist Dr. Jessica Clemens.
A person may be experiencing symptoms of anxiety or depression, may not have clinical anxiety or depression, but they may experience those symptoms for much longer while they play the waiting game.
Okay, what about the people like me that do experience clinical depression and anxiety? This is only going to make us worse. Are you going to talk about that at all? Let's find out.
I've had several breakdowns from all this.
Nick Clark used to manage a restaurant in St. Paul, Minnesota.
The thing for me is losing that sense of purpose. And not only did I enjoy it, but took a lot of pride in my job. And now every day just feels a little more uncertain than the day before.
I like this guy, Nick Clark. He states something that I personally relate to. When I was laid off and lost my job, I also lost a sense of purpose, and I also lost a sense of my own identity because I identified with a community of people, I identified with the people I interacted with, and I identified as that role. So this guy, Nick, he seems very, very real, and he's just saying it like it is, that he's feeling more uncertain as the days go on. That man, I commend. He's really saying it real. My heart goes out to him.
As hard as it is, Dr. Clemens encourages people struggling to keep a routine, including exercise, keep in close contact with loved ones. Don't be hard on yourself.
Okay, this next segment I have so much beef with, and this is like where it really started turning me.
As hard as it is, Dr. Clemens encourages people struggling to keep a routine, including exercise, keep in close contact with loved ones. Don't be hard on yourself.
When you say coping with stress, getting into routine, exercise, don't be hard on yourself, things like this, you're saying it in a way that sounds so easy. Those things are so much more difficult to do when you actually have clinical depression and or anxiety. For those people that are having the symptoms of those, it still is extremely overwhelming. When you don't have a purpose and when you're going on your day-to-day life feeling extremely uncertain and you have depression, And so getting up out of bed is already hard enough. How in the world do you manage to get yourself up to exercise, to not be hard on yourself? That is what I do not understand about this. And when you are actually have depression and anxiety, it completely attacks your whole mind. You become your own worst enemy. When you have anxiety, everything is heightened. You get more fidgety, you get more restless, your heart gets beating faster, your mind does not shut up. You're thinking about so many different things, and the majority of them are negative. You usually focus on the negative things of it, and it only heightens your anxiety and makes you more panicked. Now, on the depression flip side, when you have depression, you completely shut down. You're getting at a place where you lack motivation. You lack the mental energy or the physical energy to do anything. You want to just lay there because it's so excruciating you to do anything. The amount of energy that you mentally have to get yourself up out of bed in the morning is so incredibly hard. So now you're telling people, hey, how to cope with it? Go exercise. How do you do that? What are you telling them to do? Exercise. That's such a broad, vague thing. You could be doing so many different things. Don't be hard on yourself. So when you say to someone, don't be hard on yourself, when they have clinical depression or clinical anxiety, or even when they're having the symptoms of that in like a really prolonged period of time, that is so, I am so repulsed by that. That is, you know how hard it is to not beat yourself up? When you are in a mindset like that, if someone tells you something good, majority of the time, you don't listen to them. You think that they're just trying to say that to be nice. You are under so much excruciating pain mentally, and your brain fires so many negative thoughts at yourself and blows all the negative things in proportion of how you're a failure or how you're messing things up or how you're being, a hardship or a burden to those around you. When you have those thoughts constantly and you just say, hey, stop being hard on yourself. It's like, what the heck? I get their intentions with this segment. I understand that exercise has a positive correlation with reducing depression symptoms and those sorts of things. These are great. Routines do help you. They do. Having a mindset of not being hard on yourself, yeah, definitely. If you aren't as hard on yourself, you're going to be more positive and have more positive thoughts about yourself. But the way they presented this is what I have the issue with. They went about it in a way that's like, it's so easy to do. Just do it. It's like, no, these things are actually really challenging. So if somebody reads this and they say, oh my gosh, they're telling me to exercise, I'm not exercising. Oh my gosh, they might find themselves beating themselves up even more because they're not doing these things. So like, I understand that they're trying to help and be like, these things help. They do. I'm not disagreeing with that. They have to be more empathetic. Clearly, these people aren't experiencing them themselves, or they're not portraying it that they're experiencing these things, because this is really hard to do.
And think of anxiety as a tool.
You talk about reframing things, not necessarily seeing the anxiety as debilitating, but something that could help you. That initial feeling of anxiety can be very useful. I would encourage a person to use that anxiety to help come up with a plan. Talk it over with your loved one, your spouse, your significant other, about what the next steps would be.
Whoa. Let's rewatch that, okay?
Debilitating, but something that could help you. That initial feeling of anxiety can be very useful.
The initial feeling of anxiety can be very useful. What if we've already been experiencing anxiety for weeks? That's not really initial anymore, is it? I don't think so. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but this makes no sense to me.
I would encourage a person to use that anxiety to help come up with a plan.
Using anxiety to help come up with a plan. Okay, I understand the notion, because when you're anxious, your brain just like, it's very attentive. When you're anxious, you worry. When you worry, you're just thinking about one particular thing or a period of different things or a multitude of different things, but you're just replaying it over and over and over and over again. So I can see the mentality that they're, again, trying to have, where if you focus your intentions not on the negative, but then on having a plan, then that can be beneficial because you're such at a heightened state of attention. I see that point. But again, the point that I don't understand is there's so much uncertainty during this time. For the period of the 6 weeks we've been in quarantine, this pandemic's been going on in our society, we have been in uncertain times. When are you going to be going back to work? Still a question, you know, that a lot of people face. When is this whole thing going to go away? Is it going to go away? Will it come back? Like, there's so many things that we've constantly been uncertain of, and those uncertainties are still there. They might get chipped away a little bit at a time, but the uncertainty of this whole pandemic in itself is just anxious. So I don't understand the thought process of coming up with a plan to reduce anxiety when you're trying to come up with a plan that the current state is uncertain in itself. I hope that makes sense.
Talk it over with your loved one, your spouse, your significant other, about what the next steps would be.
Also, what if you don't have a significant other or a spouse or something like that? What if you're living by yourself? I cannot imagine the emotional toll that this would take if you already have clinical depression, anxiety, or some other mental illness. You're living by yourself, you get all this reduced, or you're a single parent like that one previous lady in this. Like, what do you do then? Overall, with this whole segment, there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people have already been feeling these things, and it's taken them around 6 weeks to finally talk about. I want them, and I ask you, NBC, please do more. The thing I appreciate about NBC Nightly News is covering this in general. I do appreciate that, and NBC, if you're watching this, I want you to know that. I think that this could be improved a lot upon because it doesn't go into detail, and it really kind of doesn't paint the full picture. So NBC News, please, when you're talking about issues regarding about mental health, please provide more resources for those who are struggling. If you're going to be talking about suicide and doctors or any sort of mental health issues regarding anybody on the front lines, please talk about the physician support line. This network is incredible by providing a licensed psychiatrist to use as a free resource to any physician on the front lines that wants to talk about any issues. If you are dealing with suicide, please call the Suicide Prevention Hotline. If you need any extra resources to talk to, please get in touch with those organizations. Please let Americans know that there are people that will be there to support. There are so many licensed psychiatrists and counselors and additional organizations that are here to support us, to support the individual person, and this is something I'd like you to talk more about. And the last takeaway I want to say is if you yourself are struggling with any sort of mental health issues, I want you to know that you are not alone, that I and so many other Americans are struggling as well, that we are in this together, and that it is a-okay. It is totally okay to not be okay. Additionally to this video, I wanted to provide more value to those that are struggling with any sort of mental illness or any sort of mental health issues. I expanded upon the 5 different ways in NBC talked about how you can cope, and I actually went a little bit deeper and gave applicable steps that you can take in your day-to-day life. Please watch that video. You can click down below and get more information there. As always, my name is Tyler Rossmann. Thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day to watch. It really does mean a lot. And I'll catch you on my next adventure. Peace out from the red chair. Ciao.